Hey, this is Vern, and today I'm going to talk about Van Jefferson, one of my favorite receivers from last year's class, and one that I believe is underrated, especially given the changes in this situation. Josh Reynolds has left, Matt Stafford has joined the Los Angeles Rams. You still have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, who are going to take most of the attention of the defense. So this leaves Van Jefferson as the third receiver on the depth chart, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially given his skill set. Before we highlight that skill set today, what I really want to talk about so you can understand the context of how I'm viewing most of the receivers that I scout is the importance of a particular aspect of their skill set, and that's going to be the release. I believe that the release and the total amount of techniques are like the seeds and the root of a plant, right? Like the route tree, for example, we refer to it as a tree. So I'm thinking about seeds and root here. Now, the receiver, if they have a good release, what that allows them to do is to have a really strong stem and allows them to have a lot of potential in running just about any route. But without this, if it's weak, then the defensive back, if they get in their face, they press them, they jam them, they crowd them to the sideline, whatever, it really impacts the upside of that receiver as far as the possible routes that they can run or the effectiveness of those routes. But again, without a good release, I think that separation overall is going to be impacted. So that's why I'm going to spend the first couple of plays that we're looking at here talking about Van Jefferson's release. This play against the Dallas Cowboys, we're going to see Cooper Kupp motion down toward the bottom, creating a bunch set at the bottom of the field. We're also going to see, as that happens, we're seeing these defensive backs, specifically the safeties, swapping around, right? And one's creeping up, the other one's creeping back toward the middle of the field. And this, if it holds up on the bottom side of the field, it looks like they're in a kind of a zone posture here. If you look at Awuzie at the bottom of the screen, he's kind of looking at the quarterback. And this is basically creating what they call a cover six situation where you have quarter, half, right? Even though we see man coverage there at the top of the screen against Van Jefferson, where basically he's got that entire half of the field to himself that he has to deal with Jefferson. Now we're going to see, before this kicks off, we're going to see that there is basically a high-low situation on the bottom side of the field. We're going to see Cooper Kupp come across on this drag route. We're going to see Everett and Woods almost run the same route, except that Everett is going to run it a little bit deeper and dig into the middle of the field. This is going to create basically a backside read for Jared Goff in case he doesn't like what he sees with Van Jefferson at the top. But as we can see later in this play, we'll see that this is the direction that Goff goes. How does this happen? Well, if we watch Van Jefferson up at the top of the screen as we kick this play off, he's going to have a little bit of a hesitation, and we can see that he actually transitions to his speed, to his acceleration really quickly while using his hands to defeat any contact that Diggs can have on him, right? This allows him to get even, and pretty much if you're even in the NFL and the quarterback is seeing the nameplate of the defensive back in a one-on-one situation, this is a good indicator that he's open. And we see that the ball travels to him. He tracks this ball deep, comes down with it through contact. Amazing play for Van Jefferson. But again, the things I want you to review is the hesitation that he had at the beginning, right into his acceleration and burst for the speed release, and the ability to maintain his red line and track the ball. All right, on the second play, we're going to look at another aspect of Van Jefferson's release. We see he's in a similar situation here, except he's in the red zone where you have a lot less room to work. But he is manned up on the outside, top of your screen again. And we see Akers is sitting there in the slot position inside the numbers. He's going to come in motion, which is going to reveal that this is man. And we see that it takes him away from Van Jefferson. They snap the ball while Akers is in motion. And what I want you to know is this diamond release that Van Jefferson is showing here. Now, a diamond release is basically a four-step release. It does a little bit of a hesitation here with 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. That fourth step is going to be outside of the frame of the defensive back. On that fourth step, what I want you to pay attention to is the hips of that defensive back. You see how they're facing the sideline? Well, Jefferson steps outside of the frame of the defensive back, but guess what? He's still under his own center of gravity, which is going to allow him to have explosiveness as he plants off of this foot to cross the face of the defensive back, and then it's an easy slant for a touchdown here. Now, he catches this ball. I like the competitive toughness here, and we can see the actual impact of that motion that we saw early on from Cam Akers, because it took 45 away from this play, giving Van Jefferson some room to work once he caught the ball and leans into the end zone for a touchdown. All right, moving on to the next play. We saw two of Van Jefferson's releases versus press. These are reinforcing a lot of the things that I saw in college: his ability to use his hands to defeat the jam, his quickness and his foot speed, and being able to get the DB's hips to open up when he needs them to, and so forth. Now we need to understand how he addresses off coverage and how he responds to a zone look, right? On this play, we're going to see motion at the beginning of the play. We're going to see Malcolm Brown and Higbee go into motion, where Brown's going to end up in the backfield and Higbee's going to end up tight to the line on the top side of the field. Before we actually launch this play, though, we're also going to see motion by Cooper Kupp. Now, watch what happens when Cooper Kupp goes in motion. It's going to reveal a lot to us, a lot to the quarterback, and a lot to Van Jefferson as this play gets ready to snap, right? So one indicator we want to understand is the posture of the defensive backs before the snap. When we look at Avonte Maddox at the bottom of the field and the defensive back at the top of the field, we're going to see that they're a little bit more upright and their eyes are into the backfield looking at the quarterback. We have a single deep safety, so this read is a basic cover 3 for us. Now, Cooper Kupp goes in motion. We see that they slide, which is going to confirm this zone look. And what that's going to do is put Avonte Maddox in a precarious situation, especially because this is play action. This play action is going to cause Avonte Maddox to try and maintain his leverage while being in position to be able to play the run. Now, what that's going to do is he's not gaining any depth, and Van Jefferson has taken an aggressive stem towards Avonte Maddox. Now, as he gets Maddox to continue to respect the leverage that he's trying to maintain, he is going to burst upfield inside of him, which is not something Maddox is expecting. And then he's going to continue running his corner route, running with play strength through the little grab that Avonte Maddox has on him, and continue on this corner route. Ball's in the air. He tracks it well, comes down with it in bounds. Good sideline awareness. Is another good rep for Van Jefferson. Now we're going to see on this next play against Dallas something similar to what we saw on the last play against the Eagles. We're going to see Van Jefferson attack the leverage of the defensive back that is essentially facing him once he gets into his route stem. So this play, we're going to see Malcolm Brown go in motion, and that is going to reveal that this is more than likely zone. That coupled with the position, or the posture rather, of the defensive backs, we see them kind of upright looking in the backfield, and then we see the safety drop down toward the middle of the field, and we're going to have basically a 3 deep, 4 underneath look. What this means for Van Jefferson, because he's going to be running this curl, is he needs to make sure that he is not going to get undercut here. And he also needs to make sure that the defensive back that he's going to be facing, Awuzie down here at the bottom, he needs to make sure that he's not going to undercut this route. So he has to sell vertical. If he's not selling vertical, this will not work. So we're going to see here, he's going to come off and look at, we can see his aggressive posture here as he gets into his route stem. But what we're going to see here, again, this is a good technique of route running where as you get closer and close that distance to the defensive back, he makes a step as though he's going to attack his blind spot. And what that means is this area, when you're playing coverage like this, you're going to have, he has his hips toward the inside of the field. If a receiver goes to his backside or his blind spot, that's going to be troublesome for him to figure out quickly where the receiver is going. Therefore, this stab step right here, what that's going to do is cause him to hesitate, and it's going to allow Jefferson to burst upfield again, kind of similar to what we saw on the last play. When he bursts upfield here, this burst upfield is selling vertical to Awuzie, so he turns his hips upfield now. And then that's, as soon as he turns his hips upfield, Van Jefferson is breaking it down and working his way back to the quarterback on this curl. It's unfortunate. We see all the separation in it, but it's unfortunate that Jared Goff, unfortunately, had a lot of pressure here and ended up getting sacked. But the point is, it's all about getting open and being an available target. You look at everybody else on the field except for, I believe, Higbee here at the top. Nobody else is really open except for Jefferson. Look at all that separation compared to everybody else. So we have this final play, another one against Dallas, but we are going to see why I like Van Jefferson's route running so much. We talked about his release earlier. We covered a couple of different plays where we're seeing his route running technique and his mental processing of it. And on this final play, we're going to see him here against zone again, but it ends up turning into a one-on-one situation because his route is the only one that ends up in the cornerback zone at the top of the screen. So as this play kicks off, one thing I want you guys to notice is his alignment. We see that he's in the outermost receiver inside the numbers. They refer to this as a reduced split or nasty split. Why is that important? Well, as the outermost receiver, when you're outside the numbers, it reduces the possibility of some routes, or it makes them extremely difficult, especially for those outbreaking routes. But in this situation, when you're in a nasty split, this defensive back has to worry about pretty much the entire route tree, right? So when we see this play kick off, we see he's in an outside leverage position, and Van Jefferson is immediately attacking that. He is trying to force that DB to widen. Now, we have to think about what this means to the defensive back. He's being widened, right? And he believes if he's maintaining this outside leverage and continuing to widen with it, what that tells me is that he believes he's going to have help over the middle with this single deep safety. Now, it kind of puts him in a precarious position, the safety, right? Because what if both routes work toward the inside? Then he has to make a choice, and that's never good for him. But regardless, this situation where we see the DB widening as Jefferson attacks outside is going to be interesting, right? He's trying to force him back inside. So Jefferson says, okay, I see what you want. I'm going to give it to you. I'm coming inside. And the defensive back thinks he's got him now. And he flips his hips back toward the inside. And right as Van Jefferson approaches him, he makes contact, but Jefferson is ready with his hands because he had a plan in the first place. Basically shucks him and swims him, bursts to the outside, and there's no help for him out there on the outside, right? So here comes the ball. Unfortunately, it's a little high. Jared Goff has some actually issues from time to time. And unfortunately, this play that could have been big is not so much now. But what I wanted you to see was the route running piece of it and why I think Van Jefferson is actually a pretty good receiver.